My name's Steve and I love people who make things. We're a nation of inventive, inspiring makers.
This room alone will produce 100,000 items a year. But yeah, it used to be full of cows.
And then I'd be, Afghanistan or Iraq, sat in my room just sketching out designs, waiting to come home to play around with them.
I'm on a mission to list the greatest products we make, because if we don't champion the skills on our doorstep, we risk losing them.
And running down to our left, we have hand cutting. The problem is getting labour now.
One of the biggest challenges we have here is our ageing workforce.
Join me as we hear stories from behind the factory doors.
I remember drawing my dad's house and he said, "Why don't you count the bricks?"
Oh, he wanted you to be quiet, didn't he? Do you ever have any sleepless nights, Alex?
I don't sleep.
Together, let's make more makers. Welcome to the factory next door, and this week we're heading from Buckingham Palace to Birmingham. We're on the trail of Morris Bells. That's the latest addition onto our list of the greatest products we make here in Britain. Now we're going to a factory in Birmingham which produces a whole range of fascinating, interesting things. But I loved the fact that they actually also make the Morris Bell for Morris dancing, which is why you found me down here next to Buckingham Palace, because I'd heard that a few Morris dancers were gathering here this evening, and I wanted to come along because if I'm going to learn about the Morris Bell, I want to hear one before I go to the factory. Whilst I go over and introduce myself, have a listen to what's coming up in this week's show. In your 40 plus years of leading this company, what were the most difficult days?
If we hadn't have done that, there was no way we'd have survived.
When I had my first car back in mid-80s, a Vauxhall Viva.
Nice car.
That used to break down quite often.
Not a nice car.
Spirits don't like bells, so you wear the bells, keep them away.
It's important to those people that we can make these in the UK.
Bedford Trucks was our biggest customer. They went. Leyland Trucks was one of our biggest. They went.
That's a great outfit. Look at those shoes. Are they Clarks?
Probably are, yes.
Well, I'm Mel. I'm a long-time Morris dancer. I mostly dance with Westminster. I also dance with Bells of London City.
Okay, now then, can you help me with a clear definition of what Morris dancing is?
That's difficult. It was first probably recorded in the 1500s in court roles where they were paying Morris dancers to perform at court dances. It's been going since then, but because it's been a lot of working class, shall we say, it doesn't get recorded much. So the history is a little contentious. Some people think it goes back to pagan times, but there's no great evidence for that.
Tell me about it being a working class activity.
If you go back to like the Tudor times when they had the Lords of Misrule, so you get lots of working class people will go out and do topsy-turvy things to try and get their own back on the landowners. And they would, Morris dance is one of the things, and mummers plays. So it's just taking the mick out of the upper classes.
So was it a kind of a middle finger up at the upper classes?
It was a bit, yes.
I love that. I didn't know that there was that rebellious streak running through Morris dancing. And what do you love about it?
It's a social exercise. Exercise is supposed to be best when you're learning something new, when you're having fun, and when it's social. And Morris dancing provides all of that.
And obviously in this episode we're celebrating the Morris Bell, and we're about to head off to Birmingham to a manufacturer's where they make Morris Bells. Tell me about the significance of the bells in Morris dancing.
So you'll get a lot of people that will tell you, and it goes back to the supposed pagan origins. Bells, when you're dancing, it was often on the quarter days, like Beltane, Samhain, Halloween, that kind of thing, when dancers were sort of in between the worlds of our world and the supernatural. Spirits don't like bells, so you wear the bells, keep them away. It would frighten the spirits off. So the bells are on often leather or ribbon pads, which are on your tied to your shins. Different teams have a different number of them. We've got quite a few. We've got about 24.
Is that 24 bells on each leg?
On each leg, yes. So it's a lot of bells.
Quite a crowd gathering, isn't there? There are lots of tourists and things like that starting to look,
Another
taking
great thing
photos.
That's another great thing about the bells. It's almost like a Pied Piper thing. So people can hear you and they can either flee or they go, oh, what's that going on? And we can hear bells and they come over and have a look. So it does tend to draw a crowd.
Well, I'm not one of the people who flee. I definitely was drawn to the bells. Mel, thanks so much for chatting to me.
You're welcome.
As the tourists start to stop and stir, you and I, let's head to Birmingham.
I'm Roger Varley and I'm chairman here.
Peter Pugh, I'm the Managing Director.
Roger, Peter, thank you very much for introducing yourselves and inviting me into your factory. So before we look around the factory, we've just come into a boardroom. Tell me a little bit about what we're looking at here.
So what we've done, we've put together a range of products that we make at Birmingham Stopper. So you can see we make things as small as pen nibs, up to the size of ventilation shaft pieces. We also do Morris dancing bells.
I know a Morris bell when I see one, Roger.
We won't give you a demonstration, but yeah, we do make Morris dancing bells.
It's a shame we're not going to get a demonstration there, Peter. I'm not going to lie. I was hoping for that. One thing that really surprises me is the range. The other thing that surprises me is, so I look at some of these pieces here, like clutch parts, or presumably these are parts maybe for kind of engines or sophisticated kind of machinery.
This actually goes together as a steering system. Yeah. So the steering system you can see over in the corner, which eventually gets fitted to a JCB.
Really sophisticated pieces like that, I'm thinking, oh yeah, that's what I would. That's kind of the magic I would expect. Kind of what surprises me is the pet tags and the Morris bells. Because don't take this the wrong way, but I would have guessed if I saw kind of pet tags and Morris bells, I would have guessed that's the kind of thing that is mass produced, you know, kind of elsewhere in the world.
With the Morris dancing bells, recently we had a letter from the Society of Morris Dancing, believe it or not, about the bells that we produce, asking us to continue producing Morris dancing bells. So it's important to those people that we can make these in the UK.
I love this story. So the Society of Morris Bells Morris Dancing.
Yeah.
Apologies. Society of Morris Dancing writes to you to say, please keep making these bells.
Yes.
I feel like I should ring one of these bells. So we've got.
He's got a bell in. Yes.
Oh.
Oh, yes.
So that's the nickel plated. We've got the brass bell. And we've got the unplated bell. Which one actually is of these three bells? Which one is actually the traditional Morris dancing bell?
I think this one is the brass one with the ring. I mean, if you would like, we could get some fitted to your jackets and you could use it as well for the listeners. But no, this is the high volume part we do.
What do you produce most of? By volume, the most common thing you create.
The parts that we supply to the off-road vehicles.
And what kind of part is that, sorry?
So this is an engine bracket that goes onto lots of different diggers and tractor units around the world. As I mentioned, these all go together on one of the key equipment that we build in the UK, the JCB, which is fantastic. So these are all what we would call off-road components, and this is where the volume would be.
Right, well, I'm very excited about having a look around.
Okay.
Let's go.
This is our press shop, and within the press shop we have lots of different sizes of presses. We'll call them hammers because it's a good description. So from a 20-ton small hammer, which will produce lots of small parts, up to one of our biggest presses, which is a 400-ton hammer, which produces bigger parts, and it ranges with the thickness we use.
This huge one here, which has got Benelli printed on the side, we'll call it Big Benelli because that is a huge one. What would Big Benelli be used for?
So the Big Benelli, it's a progression press, so that will produce higher volume parts, which will go out to our off-road vehicle customers. So we'll do a lot of bracketry from anything from 1 mil up to 5 mil material.
And there's a big sign right in front of us saying, use ear protectors. And I can tell you, you do need ear protectors. And what machine makes the Morris bells?
So it'll be one of these smaller presses here, 20 tonne. It's only thin material. It'll go through various stages of a blanking part, a forming part. We'll put the holes in. Then it actually goes upstairs into an assembly area where they put the little bell in, seal it together, and it goes out for plating. Do you want some Morris bells to take with you?
I want some Morris bells to take with me. Exactly. Spot on, Peter.
But that's how unique the business is. From a Morris bell to a pallet foot to a dog and cat tag, up to engine brackets, clutch brackets, ventilation systems, wiring looms. The wide range of parts we produce here, it makes us fit and strong really as a business.
No, I love the idea of what connects a little cat tag with an engine part for a huge JCB.
Yeah.
Well, it's Birmingham Stopper.
Yeah.
Roger's just shown me that on a corridor here we've got very, very long timeline. What are we looking at, Roger?
Well, looking at here at Roland Todd, who started the business in 1892, what I think shows his resilience, that he made a bottle stopper and he was then taken to court over it for a patent infringement. He lost the case, but he decided that he would take it to the Court of Appeal. Now that was brave, because if he lost, he was wiped out. He would have no chance, but he was so determined.
Double down.
Yes, that he was going to do it. And he won the case at the Court of Appeal. So he carried on making his stoppers. So that's how it all started in the 1890s. This is some of the paperwork from the time and the advertising.
Yeah, very cool old kind of 1900 ads, and then looking along the timeline, you start doing things in the 40s for trucks.
Yes.
A very famous year, 1966, obviously. Famously the year that Roger Varley joined Birmingham Stopper.
Yeah.
That's a great outfit. Look at those shoes. Are they Clarks?
They probably are, yes. I'd done work experience as a student, as an engineering student here in Birmingham, at this company. So I thought, well, I can see if I can get a job. And I wasn't going to stay very long.
In your 40 plus years of leading this company, what were the most difficult days?
What were the most difficult? I suppose in the 80s, when there was an awful recession in the early 80s and thousands were being chucked out of work. I mean, it's just not a few. Companies employing 10,000 were reduced to 1,000, and Bedford Trucks was our biggest customer. They went. Leyland Trucks was one of our biggest. They went. Berman Gears was one of our top customers. They went. None of them were really surviving those early 80s. The pound was very strong, and it was mayhem really, but those that could survive, that was the thinking, would come out of this better. I have to say, not just for Wendy, my wife, she was so supportive, even with the buyout, which was risky. You're taking big risks here, you're taking loans, and she was never anything but supportive. And that's a huge thing. If you've got somebody behind you who's not quite so sure, then you wonder yourself if you're doing the right thing.
Yeah, let's move over this way a bit, sorry. So we go through what we call our weld shop. So within the weld shop we have two robotic welders. They weld the high volume off-road vehicle parts. So these are the big engine brackets we produce. So that's 10mm thick plates, laser cut and formed. Other plates that we laser cut, welded together, and that actually gets fitted onto one of our main customers' engines, and they go around the world from little old Birmingham.
I suspect it never actually works out like this, but I'll ask the question anyway. Was there one particular decision which you look back on and you think,
do you know what? In hindsight, that was a tremendously important decision to the success of this business and keeping it alive.
Yes, we closed 5 factories and got this extended so we could get everything under one roof, and then bought the freehold. The idea was to get the fixed costs down, fixed overheads down. If we hadn't have done that, there was no way we'd have survived. We'd lost those customers that I told you about. Bedford Trucks has taken about 40% of our business on their own. We couldn't possibly have survived that. We were hemorrhaging money. Couldn't have survived that. We had to close down and get everything down here.
Hi, if you're enjoying the show and want to support our makers and manufacturers, please hit the subscribe or follow button. If you're listening on Apple, hit the stars and rate the show. It takes a small moment but makes a big difference. Thanks. Right, back to the chat.
This is where we have our lasers. So we have 4 lasers. We have an FO, an F1 and 2 NSYS machines. And the main difference between the NSYS is these are automatically loaded. So on the NSYS machines, we can load 2 packs of material and the robot just feeds itself and cuts. So basically when we go home at night, they just carry on cutting until they're finished.
The machine's quite big. What is that, kind of like 5-6 metres
it's
long?
5 metres by 3 metres.
Yeah. And you can see the laser working and the sparks flying off the steel as it cuts into it. Yeah. It's a lovely sight.
To be honest, when the sparks are going and the laser's moving, that's the sort we want to see. With lasers and like press work, we want to keep them running, keep them moving.
So what we're looking at here is quite a large sheet of, is this steel?
Yes, yes.
A large sheet of steel, and on it is all etched the same design over and over again into the steel.
So as you can see, the laser's working now. It's cutting a design that's programmed on the computer, and the reason they're all interlinked is to reduce any wasted material. So we maximise these sheets to produce as less scrap as possible. These are actually, again, parts for the off-road vehicles.
I was going to ask, what are these parts? These look interesting. God, there's a weight to them, isn't there?
They are quite heavy, and we cut up to 25mm thick on here. So you can imagine some of the heavy-duty brackets we do, because of the engines and if you like, the digging equipment, the tractor units that we support, they're quite heavy-duty machines. So some of the pieces that go onto those machines are quite hefty parts.
So as someone who's run a manufacturing company for 40 plus years, kind of employing people, making all of these pieces that are still laid out on the table in front of us, many of which get exported around the world. Does anybody ever say thanks? Do you ever feel any gratitude?
I'm not sure, really. I'm not sure. But I suppose I don't think about it because I'm not really looking for it. But I suppose the gratitude is having people that welcome me when I either when I'm on the shop floor or in the offices. I feel welcome. I feel people pleased to see you, whether it's a great act or they're genuinely like that. So that, to me, is really gratitude enough, I feel.
What's your greatest achievement running Birmingham Stopper?
That we've survived, probably. We've survived. To take something that could have foundered on several occasions but didn't, I think, yes, I'm happy with that. Yeah. And still going, still growing, so I'll settle for that. I'll settle for that.
And then we're into what we call the brake press area. So we have 14 brake presses. So these can do up to 150 ton bending. I'll take you to one that's been in use at the moment. These are 3 new investments we've had in the last 2 years. So with the laser and the brake presses, we're getting close to just over £2 million investments.
Is that a continuous cycle of investment you're having to do, or is it actually you've seen an uptick, or you've actively chosen to do an uptick in your capex spending and the investment you're putting in recent years?
It's a combination of more efficient equipment, which we all need to drive towards. It's de-risking the business where we've got some older equipment. If you think about a car, when I had my first car back in mid-80s, a Vauxhall Viva,
Nice car.
That used to break down quite often, and you'd get to a point where
Not a nice car.
not a nice car, but it was like a tank. It was built like a tank. But you'd get to a point where you'd have to change the car because you're spending so much money on replacing parts. Whereas modern cars tend to run now for 100,000 miles plus. So it's investing for capacity, and it's making sure we're efficient as a business. We want to remain competitive, we want to remain in business, and we have to do this to stay alive. The DNA of this business is fantastic. The strength we've got with our workforce is fantastic. We still do a gold watch every 25 years. And believe it or not, we've done 2 last year. We've got 3 to do this December. And that's tradition. We wear suits and ties in the offices still. Tradition works. And that's our DNA.
Have you got anyone who's lasted 50 years?
We've got one of the welders who's coming up to 50 years in September. And obviously our chairman, Roger, who joined in 1966. It'd be great when he gets to his 60-year anniversary.
What do you get if you've done 50 years?
He gets a well done.
You strike me, Roger, as a guy who looks on the bright side of life, sees a glass that's half full rather than half empty. Do you think you kind of need that to actually survive the ups and downs of business life for 40, 50 years?
You have your bad days. Of course you do. Of course you have your bad days. You've gone to various people and say, no, back in the 80s, no, you're too expensive, and realize we've got to invest more. And it's disheartening when you've had a day and you don't get back till quite late and you picked up nothing. Yes, it's disheartening, but you've got to pick yourself up and try again. And if you're not prepared to do that, I think you'd struggle really to survive it. You're going to go through difficult times, but it's so important that you overcome those. As I say, I have a tremendous, excuse me, I have a very supportive wife who's very positive all the time, and that's a huge help. Someone who keeps you going.
Love is the answer, and that seems a nice way to end our chat there.
Yes, why not? Because I've loved what I do. It's been fun. It's been fun. Yeah, it's been fun.
Final question before I let you go, Roger. So the Morris Bell goes onto the list of the greatest things we make, the greatest products we make, because it is just absolutely wonderful that we still make those and we ship them around the world.
Yeah.
But I just wonder, have you got any suggestions on what you think should go on the list of the greatest things that we make?
Oh. Yes, we have a lot of aero engines we're good at. Cars, engines, off-highway equipment, thank goodness, we're very good at. Yeah, just got to stop and think for 5 minutes. There's loads, aren't there, that we really are very good at.
Roger, it's been an absolute pleasure chatting to you. Thank you so much for chatting to me.
To you too, Stephen. It was a pleasure. Pleasure's mine. Yeah.
Okay, into the shed we go, and Peter did give me my very own Morris Bell. Here it is. There we go, number 16 on our list. Many thanks to him, and thanks to Roger and also Mel from Bells of London City for having a chat with me. Shout out to everyone on Instagram. Bev Evans Art and Print, I hope you enjoyed your trip to North Wales. Anna Jambo, I couldn't agree more. Priestley's Leather Goods, you are most kind. And Grace and Favour Home, massive apologies for my slow reply, but many thanks, and I love what you are doing with the shop. In 2 weeks, we might be learning about police car going by, hopefully not after me. In 2 weeks, we might be learning about linen tailoring or padding about in the world's finest slippers. It depends a little on the recording schedule, but either way, I hope you'll join us. Until next time, bye.